So the goal of FTO parenting, or first time obedience parenting, is so that when you say something to your kids in your calm, instructive voice, that they hear it and they do it. I know it sounds simple, but it's a it's a it's a challenge to enact, and so I've made up a list here and a video to go along with it of the 4 ingredients necessary to have your kids obey your voice, your calm voice, the first time that you say something. Not the second or the fourth or the fifth, not with yelling and with frustration, not with threatening, not with don't make me tell. We want your words, your calm words, to become the authority in your family. So the goal of FTO parenting is to establish your calm words as the authority the first time that they're said. So as with any good recipe, the right ingredients, when measured correctly and applied, will produce a desired outcome. And parenting is no different than a wonderful recipe. You put the right ingredients in and you get the right. No, I like to say, wouldn't it be awesome if we could get, our kids' attention, to get them to hear us, to get them to do what we're asking them to say right away the first time that we say something. So, how much less stressful would your life be if you could get your kids to go to bed quickly and quietly and just do the things they need to do and then go to sleep? Not just go to bed, but go to sleep. To eat the food that has been prepared for them, than what you put on their plate, and have them actually eat it. With young kids, to be able to stay in their arms without squirming or fussing or trying to force their way out of your arms. To be able to brush their teeth quickly and effectively and do a good job of it without having to be told every motion and movement and argument to make them do it, and to do what's asked of them without fighting back or hitting you or being violent towards somebody. When they're older, wouldn't it be great to have kids that could take out the garbage or to clean the kitchen or prepare lunch or any of those things? There's so many things that need to be taught and instructed in our lives as parents to our kids so that they become the kids that we want them to be, to become the adults that we want them to be. That being able to tackle this first time obedience thing is a crucial step to a calm, peaceful, joyful household. So that being said, what dish are we trying to prepare? We're trying to make a child who gives attention to the person who's speaking. We're trying to get a child who hears the words that are spoken the first time. We're trying to get a child who does the instructions that's been given the first time, and a child who does those things with contentment and joy. What don't we want? We don't want to have to yell to get their attention. We don't want to have to repeat ourselves, threaten consequences if they don't listen, have emotional breakdowns if the child doesn't agree, have screaming and yelling because of the instruction, get physically assaulted by the child due to discontent or anger, to change our instruction in order for them to kind of obey, or to be worried about the physical safety of our children or their siblings because of how a child's going to react when you give an instruction. So there are 4 necessary ingredients that have to be present in order for a child to hear you, obey you the first time you say something calmly. And those 4 ingredients are attention, comprehension, truth, and consequence. So the attention that's necessary, the child must be looking to the parent, ready for instruction. The child in comprehension the instruction itself must be delivered crystal clearly and simply or directly, saying exactly what you mean when you mean it. Truth, the instruction must always be given truthfully and only give instructions that you're going to follow up on. If you're not going to follow up on, don't give the instruction. Consequence, in order to establish the authority of your calm words, consequences need to be based on the fact that the child is actually doing what you're asking them to do or telling them to do. So in these 4 ingredients, attention is something that happens before an instruction is given. If a kid isn't listening, if they're not looking at you, if they're not connecting with your eyes and waiting for instruction to go in, they're not listening to you. They might hear words and sounds in the world, but they're not going to pay attention to them. So the first thing that you need to do is actually get their attention. And this can be done in a whole bunch of different ways. In our bringing up of our children, we used different sounds to mean different things. We kind of sound trained our kids. I could think of 4 that we used mainly. Their names is one. So this is making a sound or saying a word that is getting them to turn to you, to look at your eyes, and to be listening. So this is a separate action to receiving an instruction. It's an action of, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to turn to the instruction giver and listen to what they have to say. And that you can see in a child when they're ready to hear. So in a quieter environment, we will use their names, Jack or Miles, but we only use it when in proximity because we don't want to yell their names across large areas. Okay, we would use a whistle or a. The funny story there is that when our youngest was quite young and his brother could whistle, but he couldn't, he comes up to us all excited and he says, Mom, guess what? I can make the sound. I can make the sound. Listen. It was high pitched enough to be a whistle. So we also adopted woo whoop or woo whoop as a way to get attention from our kids. So if we say their names or if we go, then they will turn and listen, turn and look and listen. And so now the second one, this whistle, can cut across bigger areas, bigger spaces. It can be heard amongst louder environments. So first things first, you got to be able to get their attention. Then Sherry's got a sound that she does like a sound, but it's way louder than that. And that sound, we can hear that almost a mile away. So if there's an instance where we need them and they're not within earshot, she'll use that clicking sound to be able to get their attention and look for us and find us and be ready for instruction. We would also use a quick double clap or that's also something that we used that would cut through noise of confused or other environments, that they would stop what they were doing, hear the sound, and look and listen for us. And then if we just needed to locate them, we'd use a Marco Polo kind of response. But whatever sounds you want to use, the goal is that with that sound, the child hears the sound and is now searching for you, for your eyes, eye contact, connection to you, ready to hear the sound, hear the instruction that's coming. So you can practice this with your child so that when they hear the sound, they're able to find you, look for you, and listen. And you can use training sessions to reinforce this kinds of teaching, this teaching. Second being comprehension. So once you have a child's attention, by the way, that doesn't, just because you have it doesn't mean you're going to keep it. Okay, it goes away really quickly. So sometimes you have to revert back to getting attention back, looking on you. A young child is especially prone to this. You can be holding their head in front of you, looking at you, and they'll be going like this. Well, guess what? They're not looking at you. They're not paying attention to you. Nope. Eyes here, eyes front. Look at me. Look at my eyes. Okay. You might have to re-get their attention while you're even giving the instruction. So, okay, eyes to eyes. So then comprehension. The easiest way for a child to understand an instruction is for them to hear one that's delivered truthfully and in its simplest form. So which means the comprehension is most affected by how you deliver the instruction. So some examples would be like, a good instruction would be, go put your shoes on your feet. A bad one would be, would you like to get ready to leave? There's a direct instruction that I can follow. Go put your shoes on. Okay. Would I get ready to leave? I don't know. Do I want to get ready to leave? I don't think I want to get ready to leave. I think I'd rather just stay here. Thanks for the offer. A good one would be, finish eating all of the peas on your plate. Versus a bad one would be, do you like the peas Mommy prepared, when you're intending on encouraging them to eat them? Well, the fact of whether or not they like them is irrelevant to the fact of whether or not you want them to eat the peas. So being direct and truthful, and there's a few other examples in the written document here, but the clearer, more concise, more simple the instruction that you give, the easier it is to back up, and the easier it is to encourage them to follow. So anytime a child has to interpret or assume a different meaning than the words that they literally mean, so if they have to infer or assume or take words and change the meanings in their own mind, their comprehension goes, it's terrible. And it makes it very hard for them to understand what you're saying or asking for really quickly so that they can obey quickly. When a child gets their jacket on to go outside for the winter, it doesn't matter that. So if the instruction is, would you like to put your jacket on to leave? Then you've now given the decision to the child. I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to have the jacket on and go outside. it doesn't matter. The fact is you are going outside and he has to put the jacket on. So then the instruction has to be given something like, put your jacket on now, not would you like to put your jacket on. The semantics make a big difference and the words you choose make a big difference. So decide what it is you want your child to do when you're formulating your instruction and say what you really mean and mean what you really say. Truth. Third one. If you want your calm words to matter to your child, then you must make your calm words matter. It sounds simple, but if you want your calm words to matter, then you have to make your calm words matter. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, repeating something over and over and expecting a different result of obedience or following isn't going to work. You're going to get frustrated. You start adding in yelling or anger or using guilt to further back up your words and not just allow your words to do their work. So if you want to train your children to hear your words and do the things your words say, then you have to say what you mean and you have to mean what you say. Once you have your attention and you've formulated a clear, direct, truthful instruction, say it once and expect action. Say it once and expect action. Say it once and expect action. Uh-oh, I just said that 3 times. Woo, goodness. Now, depending on what you've been doing in your parenting up until this point, this transition can be very challenging because there are a lot of things that you've already instructed or taught or gotten the child to learn to do that you don't actually want. So there's some untraining that has to happen. But don't worry, you're not alone. We're here to help. If you ever have any trouble, please reach out. We would love to help you. So this all means that when you give an instruction, you have to mean what you say. You have to be ready to back it up. This change in our own behavior here is to be more careful with the words that we're using. If we say, finish everything on your plate, well, you need to back that up. If you say you must finish half the potatoes and all your peas, well, you need to back that up. So be very careful with what you say. And if you got it wrong, you say to your child, I'm sorry, my instruction was incorrect. What I meant to say was finish half your potatoes and half your peas, and then back that up. This understanding of truth and hearing of truth can be established really young, but your children knowing that when they ask a question or they hear words from their parents, knowing that they're true, it has lifelong beneficial consequences for the relationship you have with your child. Okay, consequences. So my quote here is that I'm quoting to myself because I made it up while I was writing this document, is that consequences give instruction significance. Consequence gives instruction significance. And if I invert that, it's without consequences, instruction has no significance. Now, the conversation of consequences, how they're used, what the plan in the family is, how you go about applying them, and the process of resolving and restoring relationships is another conversation. I'm going to touch on it a little bit here, but this is a big topic. One we'd love to help you with, but it's a big topic. So all of the different consequence methods are useful. There really isn't a not useful consequence method. There are some that parents like, there are some that parents don't like. All have benefits, all have drawbacks, and can be used in different ways, but you need to have a plan of how your consequence is going to be carried out. A bit of a non-comprehensive list of the different methods that we've used over the years raising our kids is everything from a stern voice tone, like a no, to a removal of privilege, to getting them to do work to fix the problem or extra work because of a problem, serving other people. We've used bum spanking, hand spanking, finger flicking. We've used a gentle pinch. We've used a time punishment, like a timeout kind of thing. And consequences are effective, period. But each one has its benefits and its uses, and each of them has their drawbacks and you don't want to use in this instance. So some of you may use them, some of you may not. How they're applied and the outcomes they bring is the important part. So here's what you need in order for a consequence to be effective. Number one, you have to have the consequence for a given infraction Be consistent and informed, meaning you actually have to tell your child, when you do this thing forever into the future, if you do this thing, this is the consequence. So in our family planning, we would summarize a lot of those things. So for instance, disobedience had one singular consequence. Anything wrapped into you did not obey the words that I said the first time when I said them had a consequence. And so the expectation of consequence to word was very clear and distinct, and it wasn't left up to guesswork every time that we were trying to decide how to deliver consequences. It was a set choice, a plan as to this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to carry it out. And so our kids know what those cause and effect are. So they know when they choose one thing or another thing, they know what's going to happen. It's not guesswork. So the consequence of the given infraction needs to be consistent and informed. You got to tell your kid what it is. Number two, in order for it to be effective, the kid must dislike the consequence more than they like doing the wrong thing that they're doing. So as an example, my youngest Miles really, really, really liked sucking his thumb. So to get him to stop, he had to really, really, really more dislike whatever the consequence was going to be of continuing the action of sucking thumb. And so the lesser consequences that we were using to try to get him to stop sucking his thumb, he would accept willingly, knowing that he liked sucking his thumb more than he disliked the consequences that we were dishing out. Okay, so number three, when the infraction happens, the consequence must happen, regardless of the child's reasoning skills, emotions, pleadings, loving words, any other distraction that they're going to give you, and they'll give you every one they can think of. The consequence has to take place. Otherwise, the words were of no effect. Okay, the words are the authority. The consequence is what happens when the words aren't followed. Number four, the consequence has to be delivered without guilt, anger, or sadness from you. The consequence is the price of infraction, not the feelings of guilt, not the anger, not the shame. You add nothing more. You are following your plan and you're giving out the consequence of the infraction. Number five, once the consequence is finished, and this is a follow-up from four, once the consequence is finished, the infraction has been paid for. The relationship with the child now has to be mended, restored, and the infraction forgiven, erased. You can't bring it back up again. It's not like, oh, well, you did this time and 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 this time too. Well, no, because in the process of the instruction, infraction, consequence, the wrong has been paid for. It's done. It's over. It's forgiven. The relationship between you and your child has been resolved. It has been restored. It has been brought back to its 100% state and erased. The problem is erased. It's gone. That's what the consequence was there for. Okay? So no holding on to future hurts or future emotions because of something that happened in the past. The issue is dealt with at that time and done. And the biggest indicator of success of the consequence restitution cycle is a change of heart attitude. Heart attitude being happiness, sadness, anger, bitterness, joy, contentment, meaning a change of the intention of the child. Without a change of intention, the process can be superficial and not heartfelt, and not actually changing the behavior for the future. This is a bigger long-term long-term discussion as to what our goals are with our kids, but the biggest indicator of success in this correction cycle is that the intention of the child changes to want to do your will, to want to do the instruction that you're given. So remember, the goal of this all is to change the thinking in your family to allow calm, instructive words to become the authority in your home. These 4 steps are the necessary ingredients required for your child to obey the first time that you give an instruction. Sometimes the transformation is challenging, especially if you've spent years doing things differently or repeating yourself or using anger or frustration to encourage compliance. What you have trained in your kids is what you have trained in your kids. You've got to look at it factually and say, okay, now it's time to change that. instead of being sad or disappointed that you have done anything differently in the past. It is what it is. You are where you are, and you can be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. So you want the you want the ability to establish a peaceful, calm, loving space in your home. Just remember that there is a battle happening. Your children have nothing better to do than to spend all of their time and effort trying to get what it is they want. They'll use any tool that they believe they can get away with in order to get their way. This could be flopping on the floor, stomping feet, yelling at you, hitting you or others, running away, hiding, spitting, screaming, crying, even calling the authorities on you. Stand firm. You know what's best for your kids long term, to have your kids do what it is that you're asking them to do the first time that you ask it. So if we can teach our kids to do it just one time, if we can teach our kids to first time obey once, then we can do it again. So my challenge to you is this: pick something, work through these 4 points, and have your children obey you one time the first time you say something. Because once you do that, it opens up a whole world of joyful and calm parents.